Well, both the moderator and Greg Mills have apologized to you for the delay. In my part of the world, we will say we apologize for reasons of causes beyond our control. And it is really beyond our control. We would have wanted to be here. And I don't know how many of you will be able to even get the books after the statement and the discussion. Again, you will forgive us. That is also reasons beyond our control. But having said that, I want to stress a few points that Greg has made, and also the point that my brother Ibo, the moderator, has made, and then give a specific example of the working of democracy, or not working of democracy, whichever way you look at it, particularly with my own country, Nigeria. Why this book at this time? Greg has underlined the need to focus on democracy as a system for which we have no substitute, for two basic reasons. One, it is a system that allows full participation of all the citizens in all the activities of the country: economic, social, political, because it allows for discussion, for deliberation, for dialogue, for debate, which other forms of government, other systems of government, particularly dictatorship and autocracy, do not allow for. So, from the point of view of dealing and unleashing the energy of the community, of the citizens, it is democracy that does that beautifully well and better than any other system of government. And we have seen that empirically, as we have you have heard from my colleague Greg Mills, and the experience in my own country was that we had military government. It was like one, and that's what we were having. But even with that, for over 15 years, the economic progress that we made was not much to talk about. And when democracy came, touch wood, the dispensation still continues. This year, it will make 20 years that this present dispensation have been going on without any disturbance. what was achieved within a space of 8 years in economic development was much more than what was achieved in all the period of about 16 years of military rule before that. So there's no doubt that democracy, as far as economic development and growth are concerned, it works. There is also the temptation for people to say, well, look at what is happening or what has happened in Libya under Gaddafi. Can it be sustained? What is the transition? How do you manage transition in such a situation? You talk about Ethiopia. We talk about some other countries outside Africa. But in all this, for durability, for sustainability, for peaceful transition, democracy works, and it has been proved substantially and substantively and in facts and figures. The second point is that democracy is the best instrument for managing diversity. There is no community or country in Africa that is not a country of diversity. Diversity of tribe, diversity of culture, diversity of language, diversity of religion, diversity of race, and you have it in any country. Maybe my own country, Nigeria, has more than most other countries in Africa. And we have found that because democracy open to participation, open to discussion, open to people feeling that they have a stake and they have a say, it encourages people to feel that even when they are grieved, they can put out their grievances. And then the fundamental freedoms, human right, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of association, which democracy embrace. It makes for the management of diversity, and therefore democracy works in managing diversity, in holding the fabric of the society together, and in ensuring that the institutions that help are also, they continue to be strengthened. The judiciary, the parliament, and the process of election. Election is probably the most visible aspect of democratic dispensation. But for me, it is not the most significant. The most significant aspect of democracy is in between elections. And that is when a lot of harm is done wittingly or unwittingly. When the consultation that you have taken place is not allowed to take place, the reform that should have taken place is not allowed to take place, the significance and substance that should have been there in the practice of democracy is not allowed to be there. And that is one area where if democracy will continue to work, there must be voices, there must be means by which these things will be allowed to take place. Democracy has, as part of it, opportunity or chance to protest, to criticize, to voice out different opinion, and if you are aggrieved, to go to court. And that is the beauty of democracy. Now, I have given one example in the case of my country. I've given the example that we had military rule for almost 16 years and democratic dispensation for about 8 years. And what was achieved in 8 years was much more than what was achieved under the military. In fact, under the military, we were going, and people felt that maybe, for instance, when I was coming in 1998, 99, some people came to me and said, "You will be the last president of Nigeria." I said, "Why?" They said, "Because after you, there will be no more Nigeria." That was how bad things were. That was how bad things were. And I said, well, what can I do? I will only offer what I have, the best that I can offer in terms of leadership and moving my country forward. But happily, there have been 4 presidents after me, and there will continue to be presidents in Nigeria, because Nigeria will continue to exist. Now, the other point that I believe is worth mentioning is the point that Greg touched upon. Our book, which we launched about 2 years ago, Making Africa Work, is all about the economy. And we realize that politics is the master over economics. And therefore, we need to see how politics can be managed to make the economy work for the people. Particularly when you take the demography, which he talks about. We are about 1.2 billion today. By the year 2050, we will be more than 2 billion. My own country, Nigeria, was 45 million at independence in 1960. Today, we are 200 million. When we wrote Making Africa Work, and we were going around launching it, and it was clear to us that between 1960 and now, most African countries have increased their population by a factor of 5. Nigeria, with 45, is now about 200, except one country, Niger Republic, which has increased by a factor of 10. And when we were launching our book, the president, a very pleasant man, President Yusuf, and the Prime Minister, I said, look, tell us, why is your case different? You have increased by a factor of 10. Everybody else by a factor of 5. And jokingly, they said, we are trying to catch up with Nigeria. And I said to them, no, that is not. a good example to copy. But all that will continue. By the year 2050, the present population will have doubled. But more importantly, even as of today, 60% of that population, of our population in Africa, is under 25. Though people, only 20% of them can be said to be gainfully employed, fully. About 40% of them are underemployed, and another 40% are not employed at all. Now, we are all sitting on a keg of gunpowder if nothing is done. In fact, it should have been done yesterday. We are going to move on. The population will keep increasing. And what are we going to have? People will, the youth will get fed up and say, to hell with it. And that will be bad for all of us. Somebody said to me the other day, well, we want stability in Africa because we don't want, we have too many Africans in Europe, in our countries in Europe, and we don't want any more. But, and then he said, look, if you have election, accept the result. No matter what the result may be, accept it. I said, well, injustice is a breeding ground for instability. So, accepting the result of an election which is massively rigged, which is corruptedly taken, is not the way to go for any country. And definitely not for Nigeria. Because the judiciary is part of the process of democracy. So that if you feel cheated or feel aggrieved, you still can say, yes, there's an arbitrator. There's somewhere I can go. And of course, if you remove that, then when you are cheated, what do? You either try to get justice in your own way, which may be violent, which is not right, or you may resign yourself to yourself and say, well, I will get justice in heaven. I don't know. I will want to start getting justice here and probably complete it in heaven, rather than leave everything to heaven. It's like one of my pastors. Anytime he talks, I say, look, you are laying your treasure in heaven, so don't worry, Pastor. And he said, yes, sir. Yes, I want to have a bit of the treasure here, and let the substantial part of it be in heaven. Let us get justice here, and let us finalize it out there.
Thank you very much, President. Tendai, you ready?